Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So in today's video I am going to show you how you can do API calls in swiftui using the new async way called async await, and also we will see how we used to do it previously using completion handlers. So in today's video we will explore both the ways. So let's get started. So I will create a new project and I'm going to use xcode beta for this, xcode 13 beta, because async await works in that. So let's open the new project, select iOS here, app, let's name it as async await. Then make sure you have these settings as like this: swiftui, swift. We are not going to use any database, so we can skip that part. Then click next, and now let's select the location where you want to save it. I will save it on my desktop. If you want to create a git repo, you can create like this. So I will create it and I will share the code on my GitHub profile, so make sure you check the code there. Let's create it, and once it is created, let's make our screen full screen, the xcode as full screen, and let's start. Okay, so let me just close the unwanted things. So yeah, so the first thing what we are going to do is we want to call some API and we have to show the data. So let's take the API first. So I am going to use JSON placeholder website. Here you can get the APIs free. So let's take some let's say users. So this API you can use. So I will just copy paste it here for some time. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to show the users on my list. So for that, what I will do is first I will do using completion handler the way we used to do it previously, and then I will start doing with async await. So the users who wants to watch only the async await, they can skip this part and they can directly switch to the later part of the video. So let's see what we can do. So here first let's create the user model. So as you can see here, we are getting multiple things here in the single object of the user, but I don't want everything. So what I will do is I will take ID, let's say name, username and email. So let's take only these four things. So let's create a user model. So we are going to use MVVM here. So first I will create a user model here. So let's create a Swift file, let's call it as user and create. Okay, so here I am going to create a new struct called user, and inside this let's say it as a decodable. Now let's create our properties, which are these four: ID, name, username, email. So let ID will be of type integer, then we have let name of type string, then we have username of type string again, and at the last we have email. Let email will be again type of string as well. So this is how we create our model, user model. And now what we have to do is we have to call this API, the one which we have written here. So we need to create a different class for that, for calling the web service. So let's say we want to create a web service, so let's name it as web service only. So let's create a new class for that. So let's call it as web service. Okay, so inside this what we are going to do is we are going to create a class web service, and yeah, so inside this we will be having the function to fetch the users. So let's create that function. Let's name it as fetch users, and inside this we have to pass if anything you want to pass, we will pass that here. So what I want to pass here is, like, I'm not going to pass the URL here or any parameters in the URL, so I will skip that part. I don't need that. But since this will be an async call using completion handler, so we have to create our completion handler here. So let's create that. Completion handler like this, and it will be an escaping because it is an async call, so it will be leaving this call body and it will come back again. So that's why we are going to call it as escaping, so that it will come back again once the API has received the response from the server. And in front of that we have to provide our type. So I will use the result because it will be two cases for our this result type. One will be success and one will be failure. So in success I will be getting the user model, so I will say user like this here, and not like this here, and otherwise I will get the error. So for error, what I will do is I will create one enum so that I can handle all types of error in it. So let's say enum, let's call it as API error, and it will be confirming to error protocol. Then inside this we will be having different types. So let's say we have not received any data, so no data. Or let's say our API is failed, so I will say API failed. Okay, and like suppose if we are parsing and if we get any error while parsing, so we'll say parsing failed. And let's say we have the issue while this unwrapping the URL only, so I will say bad URL. So you can create any type of error which you want, your custom types. And I will let's pass here API error. So here I have just passed this name, so I can inside this I will get whatever the error, I will return that which is confirming to API error. So it's like this. Oh, now we have created this API error, and now here I have to say void, and the return type is I have already mentioned. So yeah, now let's go inside the function, and what we are going to do is first we are going to check our URL is correct or not. So for that what I will do is guard let, or I can just say guard. Okay, somehow completion handler is not working. Okay, yeah, it's working. Guard let, let's use this, and let's call it here it as URL, and URL equals to URL I'm using, which will be string, and here I will paste my URL which I have copied from this JSON placeholder here. Now if I have received the URL and I've unwrapped it properly, then fine. If it is giving any error, then I will say here, let's go to new line, and instead of return I will say what I will say API error dot, so here I will say bad URL which I have created here. So this is how I will check my URL first. Okay, let's see what it is saying. Okay, let me check what is the problem here. I have said return. Oh, so here I have to say actually, yeah, it's correct. Okay, I have given this also. So it is saying unexpected void return. Okay, so I have to return the result here, not like this. So I have to make it inside the, since it is the result type, so I have to say completion handler instead of that. So I will keep the return as it is, and I will say completion handler dot it is failed, and here I will say API error dot bad URL, or I can say directly bad URL there. So the type inference will work automatically, but let's write it like this so that everyone will understand. And now the next part is, just a minute. Okay, so now next part is we have to do the parsing. So we have to first get the data, so we have to call the URL. So for calling we will use URL session dot share dot data task. We are going to use data task with URL, and completion handler we are going to use this. Let's pass the URL which we have unwrapped here, and in completion handler I will get the three things: data, response, and error. Okay, let's add the small d. Now as we have got the data, let's try to map it into the user model which we have created here. So let's do that part. So I will say here guard let data equals to data, and if it is fine then I will also check here error is also equals to nil or not, and if it is everything is fine then good, otherwise I will say here I will say completion handler, and completion handler will be giving the dot failure state here, and inside this I want to say that dot API has failed. Okay, this is fine. So once we have got the data we have to use it. So for using the data or to parse the data into our models we have to say something like JSON decoder, but we have to perform that inside the do catch block. So I will say here catch, and I can catch the error here, and I will print the error here, or you can return failure also, it's the same. Error dot localized description I will print. So let's do the important part, which is we have to get the users. So I will say let users equals to, let's say try JSON decoder dot decode what we have to decode it into the user model. So I will say user from the data which we have unwrapped. Okay, so now like this I will get the data, and now I want to say the completion handler to return it, the data which I have got. So I will say completion handler dot, this will be the success case, and inside this I will return the users. So here it will get the users, but here I think I will get one error. Let's see what is this. Here it is saying the self reference. Okay, let me just build it once. Okay, I am getting one error here. I have to say here dot self. So that was the error, and one more important thing here is that I have to do this inside the main queue, otherwise we will not get the data returned from this function. So dispatch queue dot main dot async I have to use here, and inside that I will do the completion the success part. So since it's a background task, I want to do this part on the main queue so that it will get returned. So that's the function we have, the URL session, and let's don't forget to call the dot resume at the end, otherwise you will not get the data. So this is how you will do the API calling. Now we have the user model, we have the web service ready, so we just need to call it from the main view, but since we are using the MVVM, then I will create the view model first. So let's create the view model, new Swift file, and I will call it as let's say content. Since we have this content view, so I will call here as content VM view model. Let's create it. Okay, so inside this I will say class content view model, and here I am going to use the observable object. So you will be that the reactive way in using you combine, so that's what I'm using here. So if you have any doubts regarding this, let me know, I will explain you that also. So I will say observable object, and inside this since when I write this, I have to give one publish property here. So like the published means whenever the array means, for example, let's say where users I have, which will be of the user array like this, let's assign it an empty. But when this value gets changed, I want to inform that to content view. So once it is changed, I have to publish it. So that's why I'm using @published, but yeah, it is like this. Now what I will do is, let me go to first one thing I forgot at the start, that I will make it as iOS 15 since we are using async await. So let's come here to the view model. Now we have the empty array, but now we have to actually call the web service function which we have written just now. So for that, what I will do is I will first write one function, which this function I'm going to call from my main view. So this will be, let's say, fetch all users. Inside this I don't want to give nothing I have to return. Like this will be the function, and let's use the web service which we have created and use the function called fetch users, and inside this we have the completion handler. So let's use that like this, and it is going to return us the result array. So I will say result, not cap, small result in. Okay, so now let's write the main code, which is in this case which will be switch case. We are going to use switch case on result. So one will be the success part, so I will say dot success, and inside this we will be getting the users. So I will say let users, and here what we will do is, for the main users which we have at the top, we will assign this. So not here I will say self dot users equal to users, which I have got. Now the next case is the failure case. So let's say case dot failure, and inside this we will be getting the error. So I will say let error, and now you can directly print the error here as print error dot localize description. So no need of default case because we have covered both the cases of success and failure, and this is how you will write the function. Okay, let's see what is the error here. Okay, we forgot to write the colon. Let's build once to check everything is fine. Okay, so here you can see there are no errors. So let's move on to the last part of the first section, you can say, that is calling using completion handler. So now we will show the users list on the view. So let's create that part. So what I will do here, I will remove this part. So first I want to get the users from the content view. So I want the content view object here. So I will say where content view model will be of type content VM, like this, and here I will say @observed object, because I think it is not coming, maybe I have not written the, let's see, observed object. I think maybe if I write here the combine, it will work fine. Let's see again, okay, there is some problem, let's skip that part now for now. So this is how it, so observed object means this content view is going to observe for the changes, and in the content view it is going to publish the changes. So once it will publish the changes, all the observers will get, so here is the observer, he will get the data. Once it is changed, all the body part will get re-rendered again. So we will use this inside this so that it will get the latest data. So what we are going to do is we are, let's say, resume once by getting this part. Okay, so I have to pass the content view here, but what we can do is, instead of doing this part, let's skip for this for now and let's focus on the main code. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to use any text inside this. I am just going to use a vstack because I want to show the list. So before that, I will create first the navigation view, which is the very first part, because I want to show the title also. Navigation title like this. Let's give the title as users, and inside this let's use the vstack to show the data vertically, and inside this I will use the main list to display the users. So list will be, let's say, list will be of the users from the content view. So I will say content view model dot users, which property we have declared as published, and we have to also say here id, so that it will identify each element uniquely in the list, and we will get the one user. So I will say user in, and now let's display the user using the text. So I will say text, and for text I will use the string interpolation like this. Let's say user dot, I have to show the username. So let's show the name only. Let's align our code properly. Let me build it and let's see if it is working fine. Okay, there is one error it is showing, but it is currently in building. Let's say if there is any error. Okay, here it is showing me the error. So content view model I have to give here. So I will say content view model like this for now. So errors are gone. Let's run it. Okay, so it's running. Increase the brightness. Yeah, so hopefully we will get the users list. Let's see. Okay, since we have got the response, but either here the user list is not shown, so let's see what will be the error. Okay, so let's move here. Okay, so actually we have not called the actual function. We are just showing the users from the content view, but we haven't called this function, that fetch all users. So let's call that function. So for that, what I will do is, on my this main navigation view, I have to use this on appear, when this will be get called when my view is appear on. So I will say on appear, and inside this I will call the content view model dot fetch all users. Let's run the app again. And now you can see this is how we will get the list of users. So this is how you are been doing in normal previous ways, where we used to call the function using the completion handler like this. Here we have used the completion handler. Using escaping we get the result or failure, and here we will use this closure, and we'll get the data, and we'll pass the data using publish to our main view. So this is the way we used to do it previously, but now, as I've said at the start, we are going to learn how to do it using async await, the new way of calling the async API calls. So let's start with that. So first what I will do is, I will come to web service, and I will change, or I will keep it as it is, so that you can use it, you can refer to both the code. So let's create a new function instead of modifying this old one. and we can compare the code how much difference it is. So let's create one new function, and I will call it, let's say, get users instead of fetch users. And here it is actually going to return an array, so I will say array of user I want, so like this. And now the main thing, we first need to unwrap the URL so that our code is same, so I will copy paste it. But the main part, which is I'm going to do it now, so here there is no completion handler, so let's remove that part. Here just return the API error whatever you have, so like this. And here what I'm going to do is I'm not going to return the error, it may this function may throw errors. So what we are going to do is we are going to say throws, so this function may throw error, so that's why throws. And here I will throw the error like this, that URL is not correct, so I am throwing the error. Now the next part is we have to get the data. So for getting the data we have to use URL session like this. So here how you can do is sorry, URL session dot shared dot data. Earlier we used to use this one, that retrieves the content of the specified user, the handler, upon the completion. But now we are going to use something different. Let's see, hey, what is that? Instead of with we are going to use from, so that is this one. Here at the bottom you can see it is an async, it throws, and here it says retrieves the contents of the URL and delete the data asynchronously. So we don't need to do the completion handler part code, it will do it for ourselves. So let's use that. Here I will just pass the URL which I have unwrapped here at the top, and I don't need this delegate part, so let's remove it. Now it will give me the data directly, so let's catch the data here in the tuple. So here I will say data, I can say response, but I don't need response, so let's don't use it, and let's say equal to. So this is how I'm going to get the data in just one line here. But now you can see it is giving me one error. It says add async to function get users to make it asynchronous. So since I have written this asynchronous code here, so the compiler is saying that we have to mark this function as also async. So I will not write that code here, I will just tap here, and you can see it has added async at the top. So with this one part is done, that okay, I have to mark this function as async. Now let's try to build it again, and let's see if we are getting any other error. Okay, it is giving me error. It says do you want to use try? So yes, we have to use it because it may throw error. So let's say try again. What it says insert await. It is saying expression async, but it is not marked with await. So it is saying that this is the async part, you have marked the function as async, but it needs to be wait until the data is coming from the server. So for that what you have to do is you have to, after try, you have to say await. Now the error will go. Let's see. Okay, now the error has gone. This is just that saying that we have not used the data. So let's use the data and parse it. So I will say let users equals to, and here I will say JSON decoder, it will be same, or decode from the user dot self from the data. Okay, now here it is saying that okay, there is one error, and it is saying that again try because we are parsing here, so it may throw error. So like this. Okay, so we have got the users, and let me just return the users now, because as you have seen we are returning the array of users. So let's return them users like this. So this is how we will do it. So since it is optional, so let me just do it like this. If there is nothing, then I will return the empty array. So now let's build again, and so this is how you will write the async part of the code. So now you can clearly see the difference between the two. The earlier one you have to handle all the async part using the completion handler, and now here in the new way it is automatically done for us. So if you just unconsider this part, where if you are sure that URL is correct, then it's just one line of code instead of this much of where you are doing a lot of code here, which was actually confusing. So here compiler needs to understand the completion handler, and there may be some issues while writing this type of code, but here all the async part is done for you just by mentioning that this function is async, and whenever you're doing the async part you have to say await. So this is how you will write the function, but now let's see how we will call it. So that is also important. So for calling, what I will say is, here I have written fetch all users. So next I will say get all users, and here I will say it is going to not return anything. Here I will say, now since we are going to call the web services function, so let's do the same way, web service dot get users. So it's an async function, as you have seen here. Let's see again, see async throws. So we have to make our function also again some changes in this function. So let's see what it is saying. It is saying that add async to function get all users to make this asynchronous. So here also I need to make it async. Now if I've got the data, I have to get it in the user, let's say user data. I will get the data into this, but again it is should be try and await, just like the previous one. So it like this I will get the data, and once I have got the data I have to publish it. So for that I have to save it inside this, so it will publish it. So for that what I will do is, okay, let's see why it is giving us some errors here. It says errors thrown from here are not handled. Okay, so we have to do this inside do catch. So let's do that first. Do, and I will say here inside this, let's paste this part, catch, and I will just print the error here. Okay, and now once we have got the data, let's go to the main queue.main.async, and here I will just say self.users equals to user data. So that's how you will just pass the data which we have got from the web service to our this users model, and it will publish it once it is changed. And now let's see, build and see if everything is correct. Okay, it's running fine. So let's come to the main view now, and now inside this we have to use it. So there is nothing different, we just need to call the get all users instead of this. So I will just comment out this part. So let's comment it and write the new one like this, and I will say get all users. Let's build it again and see if it is working. No, it says async call in a function that does not support concurrency. So yes, for this what you have to do is you have to use the async here, and then you can call your async functions inside this. Let's build it again. Okay, so it is giving me one more error. So it is saying that okay, you are calling the async, so you have to wait it. So let's mark it as await. Okay, now let's run for the final time, I guess. And now you can see it has run, it is called, and it has got the data. So that's how guys you can do it in Swift UI. You have seen both the ways, using completion handler and async await. So there is not means I mean there is a difference, and you can see a lot of difference can be seen in the code. Like here you can see I have written both the functions, and you can compare the code here. Also you can see in the view model it is simplified very much, and here in the view there is nothing changed, but we have used this async and await here also. So that's all guys for this video. I hope you have liked it and you have learned something new. So thank you so much for watching. Bye.